How are you doing, green industry business leaders? This is episode number 28 of the Green Industry Profits Podcast, where we talk about how green industry companies can grow in a profitable way. In today's episode, we had a conversation with Dan Pestretto of Systems Organized by Design. We dive into understanding the business side of a landscaping company, building systems, the documentation of processes within your company, and much more. And before we dive into this episode, just a quick note that this podcast is brought to you by Cycle CPA, a remote accounting firm that works specifically with green industry businesses. For more information, go to cyclecpa.com. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, everybody. Excited for today's episode here with Dan Pestretto with Systems Organized by Design. Dan has a tremendous amount of experience within the green industry. First saw your content over there on LinkedIn, and for those that don't already follow Dan, definitely do so. Some great stuff there, and but really looking forward to diving into today's conversation. And diving into a couple different points. But before we do so, Dan, if you don't mind, just giving everyone a little overview of your background and how you got into the industry.
Well, I am really one of those guys who was born into it. I have, I guess I bleed green. My family is going to be in the landscaping business, in the landscaping industry for 100 years in 2029.
Wow.
So I'm third generation. I have a young son, and it's not yet determined if he'll go into it, but there's a little spark there. So we may be going on into the fourth generation. So yeah, I grew up on a landscape nursery and started working with my dad when I was 10, and just to spend time with him, because you know how it is, right? I mean, when you own your own business, that's what you do, you work. And so I rode around in the truck and did a few things at 10 and got a degree in horticulture, and which is something I might like to talk about later. But my father was that the best thing that I could do to stay in the business is to learn horticulture. So I got a degree from UConn in horticulture. Discovered that after I graduated that my dad was going to pay me the same as if I didn't go to school. So I I went off on my own. Money was better. Circled around back and started my own business, and then started and I did that from an artistic point of view, from a design point of view. I am naturally an artist, and I ran that business into the ground artistically. And I learned a lot. That was a very big learning experience. I mean, I was determined to pay off all my debts. It took me years and years and years. It was like, it was kind of like going to school, right? It was very similar. I'm old enough to have gone to school for cheap, but what I built up in debt running that business was kind of like what kids nowadays are going through with the loans,
Yeah.
educational loans, and paying back educational loans. And because I had decided I was going to do that, I probably would have been better off going bankrupt, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted
Yeah.
to pay, and it easily took me 20 years to pay everything back. But I did. And I'm thankful for that. I am still an artist at heart, but I know where I went wrong. I learned a lot. I eventually became, in the middle of all my suffering, one of my clients gave me a book called The E-Myth Revisited. Actually, this is not the book, but this book is almost as old as the book I read. It's the same edition. And that was enlightening. And I learned a lot. I went on to manage other landscaping businesses and own other landscaping businesses. And from the first failure to today, I've made a lot of money, and I understand now how to run a business. And I eventually became an certified E-Myth coach. I did that for little over 5 years, and I still act on those principles today in the work I do at Systems Organized by Design.
That's awesome, man. And no, thanks for the background and kind of, diving back into your degree in horticulture. Within that within that experience, was there any other business aspects to that, that maybe helped in regard to running a company from the administration side, management side, or was it most of that gained in just your experience as you started to, join the company with your father and then even run companies in the future?
Yeah, no, it was plant science. It was all plant science, environmental horticulture. So no, I had a roommate who was an accountant, but that's as close as I got to business management. And many, many, many years later, it occurred to me that, hiring horticulturalists is cheap. Hiring a business manager is expensive. So the way I think I should have gone was probably more into the business management side. At that point in time, I mean, I'm 68 now, so that was in the 70s. And I don't think I even knew any of my friends' fathers who had MBAs. And I'm not sure that, an undergrad in business would have taught me enough anyways. People weren't going on, very few people, unless they were going the educational route in the 70s, were going on to grad school.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot to be learned, once you start to get into the real businesses, really start to experience, a lot of different things that are going on. And you had mentioned also just the artistic aspect of a company and doing the work versus the business side. Um, I guess, do you mind elaborating on that and kind of over your many years of, now being in the green industry, um, just what your perspective is on really that difference?
Hmm. Well, I think on the sales side, it has been very helpful to be artistic. Uh, my understanding of art is that it's a way to communicate. And my understanding of sales is it's a way to communicate. So I take that drive to want to communicate feelings and ideas, and I put that into landscape design and sales. And I think if you have that, I think it's really necessary to be a good salesperson, not only to like people, to listen to them, to um, to get them to engage with you. They need to have confidence in your abilities, and having creative ideas and wanting to communicate to them, I think is a big, big, big part of it.
Yeah,
So I believe that helped uh, helps and still does help an awful lot.
yeah, no, no, absolutely. And now for when you work with companies, it's I think for those, similar to even your path, Dan, a lot of people getting into it because they enjoy the work, they enjoy the outdoors, they enjoy being their own boss, right? Um, but then all the other administrative and business related items, one of them being building processes and systems within a company. I know that's something that you really emphasize within your coaching. Um, I guess, how do you, for a company that has really not focused as much on that, maybe they focus more on sales and just trying to build their name in the community, and then all of a sudden now they have all these customers to service and some of these employees to manage, and I guess, how do you approach that, right? When a company really doesn't have much in regard to systems and processes, or really any standardization.
Yeah, standard operating procedures. Yeah, I don't think there's a guy in North America who hasn't heard work on your business and not in it. They
Yeah,
get the idea, but to really understand what that means, I know when I first had my landscaping business, the one that failed, every day felt like I was stepping into new snow and I didn't really know how deep it was. And so understanding how to work on your business instead of in it. One of the things that I found really helpful in my growth in that area is to understand that the business is the product. So when you're working on your business and not in it, you're working on the product, which is getting the business to deliver the service in a consistently profitable way. And the and most guys come to owning a business. I mean, they know about working on their business and not in it, but they feel very strongly that the way to build a good business is to have a great service, to be a really good landscaper, to have all the other guys be really good landscapers. And that's what they work on. And that gets you up to a point. And you got to get up to that point where you're frustrated about your growth because, and the frustration can take the place of like, I am working, 18 hours a day. I am saying the same things every single time. I know when I started my business, I felt like an average student, like average or below. And I was a freaking genius every single day because nobody could do anything without coming to me. And it was very frustrating. And so the way to do that is to go to the people who hire good people, hire people that have great attitudes, and teach them how to landscape. And then when chances are you're going to get people who can do it even better than you. And even if you can't, you get the people that are the best at it, and you start documenting processes. And it's in that process documentation that you start to see a way how this business might work without you. And then the next problem is that you've got processes documented, but people don't use them, or they don't have the access to them, or they can't find them. And you've written so many damn processes that it's just a jumble, and you've got it in Google Docs or Dropbox or whatever, and you've written these processes, they're documented, they're probably pretty good, but nobody uses them, so you can't really tell. And so that's where I come in, and that's where I like to help people. When I first started my coaching business, I was helping anybody that wanted help. And it's too hard to help some people. They've got to get up to the point where they've got the pain of like, I'm working 18 hours a day and it's not working. And I've worked on my business. I've documented processes. It's still not working. Why is it not working? And there's two things that have to happen. One, they have to understand that that what they did to get to where they are will not get them to where they want to be. And then they also have to understand that it's better organization that's going to take them further. It's not going to be harder work. It's not going to be working 20 hours a day instead of 18. And I have had clients that work 20 hours a day. I never had that strength, but there's guys that are driven so hard. And you can't blame them. Their house is usually on the line. And it's a shame. They just work themselves to be burnt out, and then they end up giving up whatever, selling for parts, and that's it. So that's where I can help. That's where I do help them. And it's all really about organization. And what we do is I use a software called Touchstone, and it's available for anybody, but there's a monthly subscription. And we start at the very beginning because, how you built your processes before, is probably important, but it's more important to base everything moving forward from this point on where you want to go. What is your vision? What are your values? What kinds of things are important to you that you want to be important to the guys and to the people that work for your company? And we start there, and then we we look at all the processes existing in the company. We look at the vision of where they want to take the company, and we develop an org chart based on that vision. Then we take the processes and we apply them to the org chart, to the different positions on the org chart. And so we name processes, we name objectives for the processes. The vision really works as an objective for the business 3 to 5 years out. It's all organized according to where you want to take the company. Objectively for the company, and each role's objective of how they're going to make that happen for the company. And the clarity, right? Like it's chaos. It goes from chaos to clarity. And that when a business owner starts to feel the clarity of organization and objectives, and everybody's objectives is helping to help the main mission or the vision of the company, it's like roses and sunshine, and it's a beautiful feeling. And you at that point they can start to see a light at the end of the tunnel, to use a phrase. And that in a long-winded answer is, kind of what I do to help people.
Awesome, Dan. Yeah, I think sometimes that light at the end of the tunnel is incredibly important, especially when people are putting in those long hours and they feel like you had mentioned with that one phrase of kind of stepping in snow and you don't know how much snow there is, right? Now kind of on going back to the fact of or the unfortunate reality where sometimes business owners they don't want to maybe implement change or they don't see a need for change until they absolutely have to make that change, right? Because they're on the verge of being burnt out, they're doing way too much in their company. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Dan. How how could someone avoid that, right? Like, and I think part of that comes with having to kind of look ahead, right? Because and kind of forecast out, okay, what's going to be needed next year if we're going to grow to this level. You know, because for I'm sure a lot of the people that come to you, Dan, they're already at that point, right? Where they are burnt out. But then I think that part of the difficulty with that is it almost has to get worse or not worse, but there's almost a lot of work that then needs to be done when they're already working a lot, right? To build these processes and these systems, right? So I think it's almost trying to change that mindset in okay, when times are good or when you're building the company, implement those changes now because yeah, you may think that you don't have a lot of time now, but you're gonna have a lot less time if you don't implement these things. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and how we can get more people to really kind of dive into things and be a little bit more proactive.
All right. I'm just writing notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is very common. You mentioned a couple of things. One, when you were describing that person who's overworked and then they're going to come to me and they're going to have more things to do.
Yes.
Like the guy, nobody wants to do that. Like, if you're working
Yeah.
18 hours, it's too much. So, it takes me back to the basis of the whole thing. What happens most of the time in 99% of all the businesses, 99% of small businesses are started by technicians, people who know how to do whatever it is they're doing. They do it really well. They get to the point where they maybe have been working for somebody. They get to the point where they top out and they start their own business. They are a technician. They are looking at business ownership as a technician. They cannot imagine, and maybe they get to the management, right? Because they're good and they sell and they get some stuff and they get some work and they get employees, and then they become managers and they can handle that. But it's still kind of that technician's attitude of bear down, work hard,
Yeah.
figure it out, work on my business, document processes, and work 18 hours a day. And now I need help, or I need to get smaller. And so if you're going to make the choice of getting smaller, then you don't need any help, because you are already there and you're back down to where you're comfortable. If you want to continue to grow, what you need to do is you need to start to, like if you're working 18 hours a day, business is not going to fall apart, and you may have to take a step back. But we're not asking for a lot of time. We're not asking for another 6 hours a week. We're really asking for an hour a week to work on new co. You got old co, and that's the way it is. And you take what's good about old co and you put it into new co. And you start from the beginning with a vision in new co. And you put in an hour a week, an hour a week, an hour a week. And once you start to utilize the things you're learning, you start to delegate, and you learn how to delegate first, and you learn about the vision, and you learn about values, and you learn about being a leader, and you start to put that into practice one process at a time. And you may end up not really using fully any of the processes. You may take pieces of the processes that you've documented up to that point, and you'll use that as a basis for your new processes. But as you start to implement, and I work with people about prioritizing and where's the best value, and it's not cookie cutter. It's not like, oh yeah, you always do this when you're here. It depends on where you are, and we take a look at where you are and what you want to do and where the fires are and what's recurring most often, or are you hiring a new position? And does it make sense? We look at the org chart, and does that position make sense? Oh yeah, it makes sense. Okay, it's a new position. There are no documented processes for it. Let's say you decided you're at the level where you may want to hire a general manager. Well, what does a general manager do? A general manager does a lot of what you do. Have you documented the processes? Likely not. I'm just initiating. I have decided to go back in the fire. I love coaching. I will continue to coach. I do love coaching, but with my son being interested in going on into landscaping, I've decided that I'd like to buy a landscaping business. What I've noticed when I'm starting to look at businesses is that it doesn't occur to most people to document anybody's work, let alone the work they do. Why would I document what I do? And the answer is, if you want to grow, and you're overwhelmed probably because you're ambitious and you want to grow. And if you want to grow, you got to start offloading some of the work that you're doing so that you can work more on your business and then in it. And so, for taking that example of a general manager, you start to document the things that you do. You look at the different things that you do. And I help people look at those things because we divide the business into 4 different categories. We divide it into getting the business, which is sales and marketing, doing the business, which is landscaping, guiding the business, which is management and leadership, getting, guiding, doing, and running the business, which is what you excel at. The behind the scenes. And I'm not certain to what extent, but you're at least very good at supporting the back end office, the back end part of the business. But an owner has to be able to at least manage all 4 parts of the business. And if they start looking at the business in these divisions, they can start to isolate the processes or start to think in a process-oriented way about what they're doing in terms of sales. What do they do? Do they already have salespeople? How do they handle the salespeople? If not, how do they do the sales? General manager is probably going to, if they're coming on to the company at the size you are, you're probably going to want them to do a little bit of sales. So you start to look at that. And you start to look at the 4 different aspects of the business. And certainly in accounting, most landscape technicians are not good at accounting or bookkeeping. And so what you need there is how to understand financial statements, how to make management decisions based on the data that bookkeeping and accounting provides you.
Yeah.
And you're probably never going to let go of that. You'll probably never let go of that, even if you were to replicate your business 10,000 times. The most important thing is, I hate to say it that way, but it's true. It is. The most important thing is the money. If you don't have the money, you're going to die. A few years ago, quite a few years ago now, I saw a $70 million landscape business crash. And it was because his accounts receivables got extended so far that he couldn't borrow any more money. And he died. He crashed. It was sad. So, and even one of my big mentors, Michael E. Gerber, he had that problem in his coaching business. So that's something that you never want to let go, but you do want to be able to document processes in the 4 quadrants. You got to learn to delegate. And if that general manager is really the next position you're going to hire, then you do 10 or 15 of them. How long is it going to take you? Well, and can you delegate that? No, you can't. So that's probably, we are now in the age of AI. In the age of AI, it used to be that you could probably figure an hour per process, an hour of quiet thinking on your own per process. Now, I am a big fan of Claude, but I'm sure Chat GPT is just as good, and all the others are probably, somewhere as good. And in my Touchstone thing, I don't know what AI they access, but you can go in Touchstone and you can say, this is the process, and they give you steps. And so then it's a matter of like saying, okay, based on my vision, based on my values, what do I think about the steps? What do I think about having a general manager do these steps? And so it's like, it may still take an hour to do a process, but it's going to be a whole lot better. It's going to be a whole lot closer to the finished product after that hour if you work with AI. And if you work with Touchstone and the AI that is embedded in Touchstone, because it's naturally all set up towards process orientation, it's going to be pretty darn close to good enough, good enough to have a new guy look at and understand what you expect of them. So that's really, I hope I answered the question. That's Oldco and Newco. So you're doing all this in Newco, but the girl that got you to the dance is Oldco, and you don't leave her. You take care of Oldco, and you continue to work in Oldco while you're working on Newco. And that general manager, when you hire the general manager, there's the beginning of Newco. And you cherish Newco as much as you cherished Oldco. And he or she, the general manager, is then going to go take on this new position with documented processes in a clear way. And he or she, I keep saying he because it's me, I've done this. You're then going to know, you're going to expect that same sort of discipline and organization in these other things. And when you see it's not there, you are, the difference between, I can't think of anything that's, I'm thinking of an analogy, but it's not, it's like getting into, it's the difference between getting into your bed when there's new sheets and getting into your bed when somebody else slept in it. For that new manager, he's not going to get into that dirty bed. He's going to be really motivated to have the organization that you provided the general manager. That general manager is going to want to provide that for everybody. And Newco then is born. And the progress that happens after that is exponential.
Yeah.
It really will be. And because all of a sudden it's really going to be clear. It's not like what is learning incrementally, well, it's not like learning a language really, where you've got to go through the grammar and you got to go through everything, and it it's a long, long way until you start thinking in a language. That's when you're bilingual.
Yeah.
Um, this is more of like enlightenment, aha moments that change your life. And that, opening up to that first position, whether it's a general manager or not, that first position that comes into your company that is documented and organized, that's an aha moment. Oh my goodness. What a beautiful thing it is to manage somebody who's got documented processes, understands their objective and the vision for the company.
Yeah.
And if it is a general manager, it's going to be like, wow. And if you don't do that and you hire a general manager, you are just getting further in the hole. You're going to find out that now you've got $100,000 a year person, and um, and it's a freaking nightmare because it was 18 hours before, and you were at least saving $100,000. Now that money is just going out, and nothing is better. Nothing is better. It's almost imperative that if you want to grow, and everybody, I've worked with a lot of people, and every business owner has a different level of management capacity. That's really where it is. It's the management of your business.
Yeah.
And I worked with this young kid who never graduated high school, but his capacity was amazing. He was managing a $7 million business. We grew it to $7 million. I was working hand in hand with him. And at that point, he was doing, he was working at 2 o'clock in the morning, and up at probably 6 anyways. And I was the coach. I was the coach. I was the landscape designer. I was the salesperson. I was helping him in everything I could, but I could not, as a coach, because I was working in the business, I couldn't help him work on the business. And the business is still maintaining. The guy's very smart, but he's not getting past where he was. And I've since left him, but I don't. From what I can tell, I don't think he's where he used to be. But now he has a general manager, and that poor general manager is also swamped and busy and
Yeah.
frustrated. And it's I don't, look, I only know what I know, and I'm telling you this is the only way. Maybe there's other ways, right? There's certainly other ways to coach, but from what I've learned about all of the coaching philosophies and perspectives, they're just different stripes on the same zebra. They have different words, but it's still basically organize the business, document processes, understand the vision, communicate the vision.
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's all the same. And I'll tell you too, it's all the same in every business. 85% of what you do in your business as a landscaper is similar to what a locksmith does, or a janitorial service, or you name it. It's all the same. The only thing that really changes is the delivery, the doing in my 4 quadrants, and even the implementation of doing processes. It's not that different.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There's no shortcut, right? There's you know, I think for larger companies, top 100 companies, and um, there's a reason that they do what they do. And, they have the certain processes and ways that they go about doing things. So, um, it's I think having people really kind of think more proactive and trying to get ahead of things as much as possible. Um, and I know this being the Green Industry Profits podcast, always like asking this question here, Dan, but how do you feel companies can operate not only just to sustain year over year, but to operate in a highly profitable way.
No, you're making me think of what I am learning now. Like my family, 100 years in it, but we're not wealthy. We're comfortable, but we're not wealthy. Now I am looking at buying a business. I am getting a different perspective on the landscape business. I always looked at it as okay, maybe as an entrepreneur, but as an entrepreneur in a way to make the business as easy as possible for myself. Well, the next step of making the business easy as possible for yourself is to add more businesses to it. Like if you get a landscaping business and or you build a landscaping business up to the point where it is working well for you, systems are in place, you're not spending 18 hours a day on it, you're spending 6, and you're ambitious. I mean, there's all two types of people, I guess, in the world, those that are ambitious and those that aren't. And most entrepreneurs are ambitious. And I am now discovering that, and it kind of feeds into what I had learned a decade ago or more, that it's cheaper to buy horticultural expertise than it is management expertise. And the way to buy, and when you get to the point where you're buying management expertise, you can exponentially increase your wealth.
Yeah.
And so how do you get profitable? There's the profit that comes with efficiency of operations. And then there's the profit that comes with buying talent.
Yeah.
And if you buy talent and you can buy work with that talent, then there is no limit. There is no limit. These PE guys, much as you might think terrible things about these MBAs who are just money oriented and they're buying up landscaping businesses and they're ruining them. Well, if you're into money and if you want to be wealthy, you got to look at what they're doing. It's the difference. It's that aha moment, right? You have all these aha moments when you're going from overwhelmed to an entrepreneur who's choosing how they want to work in their business.
Yeah.
And then the next step up is understanding how to manage talent, and acquire work in a non-organic way. Of course, you had to understand how to do it to get to where you are. But the exponential growth is when you can buy it non-organically, when you're actually buying revenue. Buying revenue, you take a hit on it at first, but if you know what you're doing and you went through that process to get your business to where it is, that next step to wealth, that comes with understanding what you went through, getting to a position where you can acquire more businesses that haven't gone through that, and making the changes in those businesses that you did in yours, and then doing it again and doing it again and doing it again. And I am so unhappy that I'm 68 years old and finally figuring this out. I am going to do it. I feel like a young 68, and I am going to do it. You need the support of your family and everything else. And if I don't do it, it'll be because my wife, who knows, I mean, she might not want me to. and it doesn't come without risk, but it's something that I'm really turned on about at this point. And when you mention profits, there's the profit that comes from get efficiencies, but the wealth comes at multiplying that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome points, Dan. And That's a it's definitely something a lot of people are considering, that whole buy versus build philosophy. But as for those that want to reach out to you, Dan, what is the best way for them to do so?
I think the easiest thing is to say LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm always on LinkedIn. I run two of the biggest professional landscape groups on LinkedIn. So join landscape contractors and join landscape business owners. But look me up on LinkedIn, and connect with me. I don't refuse. If you're a landscape business owner, I won't refuse your connection. I do refuse a lot of connection requests. But if you're a landscape business owner, you're in, and I'd love to talk to you.
Very cool, Dan. Anything else you'd like to leave the community with before we wrap up here?
Um, this book changed my life. I know there are other perspectives, and I imagine they're really good. I focus in on the E-Myth Revisited. Um, get it, read it, and talk to me about it. And let's work on your business so that we can get you to the point where you're multiplying your business by buying other businesses.
Very cool.
Or if you're, like I was too, in the beginning, I was that artistic landscape business owner. I didn't want to multiply in multiples of multiples of multiples. All I wanted to do was do a really good job for the people that I had as customers. And the way to do your best is to be free to do the work that you like to do and that you are best at within your own company. And organization will be the way to do it.
Yeah. No, awesome stuff. This is phenomenal, Dan, and I really appreciate you taking the time to discuss a lot of these topics. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day. All right.
Thanks for reaching out to me. I really appreciated talking to you. And same to
Talk to
you.
you soon.
Have a great day.